The celestial nexus was not a place for the faint of heart. Nestled in the neutral zone between three warring empires, the space station served as a haven for mercenaries, traders, smugglers, and those who preferred to exist in the gray areas of galactic law. Its bars were legendary, and none more so than the Void's Edge, where species from across the galaxy gathered to drink, boast, and occasionally settled disputes in ways that left permanent marks. Krathax the Undefeated stood at the center of the main floor, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. The Zeltharian warrior towered over most patrons at nearly 8 feet tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the dim lights. Holographic displays floated around him, showing his most impressive kills: a Dreadclaw from Proxima 7, a Void Serpent from the Kepler Nebula, and the legendary Titan Bear of Arcturus Prime. 17 systems. Krathax's voice boomed through his translator, causing several nearby patrons to flinch. I have hunted in 17 systems and claimed trophies from creatures that would make your ancestors weep. I am Krathax, the galaxy's greatest hunter, and there is no beast in this cosmos that can escape my skill. At a corner table, Grace Martinez sat nursing a glass of Martian whiskey, her dark eyes fixed on the boastful alien with mild amusement. She was small by human standards, barely 5'4", with close-cropped black hair and a lean build that spoke of practical strength rather than bulk. Across from her, Zachary Chen shook his head with a smile. He's been at it for 20 minutes, Zachary muttered, his fingers drumming against his own glass. You'd think someone would challenge him by now. Grace smirked. Most of these species actually respect their hunters. They don't understand our particular brand of crazy. Krathax continued his display, now showing footage of himself bringing down a pack of razor wolves single-handedly. The crowd around him consisted mostly of species that valued physical prowess and hunting ability. Zeltharians, Kronar, and even a few Vraxian warriors who nodded in appreciation at his kills. No creature has ever bested me, Krathax declared, all forearms raised in triumph. I am the apex predator of this galaxy. Grace set down her glass with a soft clink that somehow cut through the noise. Bullshit. The word was quiet, but in the sudden silence that followed, it might as well have been a gunshot. Krathax's compound eyes swiveled toward her table, and the crowd parted like a receding tide. What did you say, tiny creature? Krathax's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement or anger. It was hard to tell with Zeltharians. Grace stood slowly, barely reaching the chest height of most aliens in the bar. I said bullshit. You're not the apex predator of anything. You're just loud. The bar erupted in a mixture of gasps and chittering laughter. Zachary pinched the bridge of his nose. Grace, we're supposed to be keeping a low profile. Too late for that now, she replied, walking toward Krathax with the casual confidence of someone who had faced down worse odds and survived. Krathax leaned down, bringing his face close to hers. His breath smelled like sulfur and old meat. You dare challenge Krathax? You, a human? Your species has barely left your own solar system. You have no claws, no natural armor, no venom. You are prey, not predator. Grace didn't flinch. That's where you're wrong. Humans are the most dangerous predators this galaxy has ever seen. We just don't need to brag about it. Prove it, Krathax roared. Or admit you are nothing but a boastful coward. Grace glanced back at Zachary, who had his head in his hands. She grinned. All right. You want proof? Let's make this interesting. A hunt. Tomorrow in the station's biodome. No weapons, no tech beyond standard gear. First one to bring back a Thornback Stalker wins. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Thornback Stalkers were apex predators native to Kepler 442b, kept in the station's biodome for research and occasionally illegal sport. They were fast, intelligent, and had razor-sharp quills that could pierce most armor. The station kept 3 of them in a carefully controlled environment. Krathax's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. You challenge me to hunt the most dangerous creature in the station? Very well, human. When I return with my trophy and you return with nothing, if you return at all, you will announce to this entire bar that Krathax is the supreme hunter of the galaxy. Deal, Grace said. But when I win, you shut up about being the greatest anything and admit that humans are the real apex predators. They shook on it. Or rather, Grace's hand was briefly engulfed by one of Krathax's massive appendages. The next day, half the station's population crammed into observation areas around the biodome. Bets were being placed at odds that heavily favored Krathax. Zachary stood in the control room, monitoring both hunters' vital signs and positions. "You have 1 hour," the station administrator announced. "Begin!" Krathax immediately charged into the dense jungle environment, his movements powerful but noisy. Grace, meanwhile, disappeared into the foliage so quickly that several spectators blinked in confusion, wondering if she had teleported. 45 minutes later, Krathax was still tracking his prey, following broken branches and disturbed soil with the methodical patience of an experienced hunter. He had yet to catch sight of a thornback stalker, though he'd found their territorial markings several times. Grace, on the other hand, had been sitting perfectly still in a tree for 30 minutes, her breathing controlled, her body language mimicking the environment around her. Below her, a thornback stalker prowled, unaware of her presence. She had tracked it within the first 10 minutes using techniques that would have made her grandfather, a Marine Corps scout sniper, proud. Humans, she knew, were persistence hunters. They didn't need to be the fastest or the strongest. They needed to be patient, smart, and willing to outlast anything else. That's what made them dangerous. When the thornback stalker finally settled to rest, Grace moved. It was over in seconds. A calculated drop, a precise chokehold that avoided the creature's quills, and steady pressure until the animal went unconscious. She'd done this before with alligators back on Earth. Aliens thought humans were fragile, but they forgot that Earth was a death world, where even the prey could kill you. Grace walked out of the biodome carrying the unconscious thornback stalker over her shoulders. Arriving back at the entrance with 12 minutes to spare, the crowd fell silent. Krathax emerged 3 minutes later, empty-handed and covered in scratches from the thorny vegetation. His compound eyes fixed on Grace and her trophy, and for a long moment he said nothing. Finally, his translator crackled to life. "How?" Grace set the stalker down gently. "It would be fine once it woke up. Humans don't hunt like you do, Krathax. We don't overpower our prey. We outsmart them. We track them, we wait. We've been doing it for millions of years, long before we reached the stars. Every creature on our planet learned to fear us, not because we were the strongest, but because we never, ever gave up." She walked up to the towering alien and looked him in the eye. "You hunt for sport and glory. We hunt to survive. That's the difference." In the void's edge that night, Krathax stood before the assembled crowd, his posture notably less arrogant than before. "I am Krathax," he said quietly, "and I have learned today that the galaxy's greatest hunters are human." Grace raised her glass from her corner table, where Zachary was simultaneously proud and exasperated. Around them, the galaxy's most dangerous beings learned a valuable lesson: never underestimate a human. They might not look like much, but they came from a world that tried to kill them every single day. And they not only survived, they thrived.